gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's February the 21st, 2024. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined once again by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day. And before we get started, I just want to tell you, spring practice is upon us. There is no better time than now to join our website at CaneSport.com. I'm going to throw a special for you guys up on the screen. You get your first 2 months for $1. So if you're not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please go to the website, put in the code Canes1, and come join our great community of fans. You will not be sorry. And we spend every waking moment of every day doing everything that we can do to enhance your fan experience, and we promise to continue doing so. Which leads us to our initial topic, I'll call it, for today. And we're starting to get a chance to have an opportunity to talk to some of the experts on the NFL draft. And it's always been an interesting time a year lately for the Hurricanes, simply because it's been pretty non-eventful. You know, Miami just has not been a serious player in the NFL draft for many, many years. Just a sprinkling of draft picks here or there. You had your Greg Rousseau, you had your Jalen Phillips, but just not a whole heck of a lot on a year-to-year basis. And this year, I'll call it a little bit in the middle. There's a few guys that might get drafted, starting with Cam Kinchens at safety. There's a lot of talk that he might go somewhere in the latter part of the second round. But beyond there, Leonard Taylor is fighting for his life here for draft position. James Williams is fighting for his life. Got a couple more guys that are trying to continue to impress the scouts and get in the mix. But Matt Shodell, when you add it all up, it's just another ho-hum year for Miami in the NFL draft. You had a chance to talk to a guy at ESPN by the name of Matt Miller. He's one of their draft experts, along with Mel Kiper. Give us a little synopsis of your impressions after those talks of how Miami's draft positioning is being looked at from those on the outside.
Well, I mean, people can read the story, but I can't wrap my head around why, Matt Lee could have come back. He leaves to probably be a free agent or maybe a very, very late round draft pick. Leonard Taylor, maybe a second rounder. James Williams, they're saying is going to be a fourth rounder. He could have come back and played linebacker and showed, right now they're viewing him as a tweener because he's never really played linebacker, and he's going to be a weak side linebacker in the pros. And then, Cam Kinchens probably couldn't have increased his stock much. I mean, he was going to be a second rounder probably no matter what. But that's the thing, all those guys could have come back. All the guys who are going to be drafted could have come back for another year. I think the Javion Cohen, I'm not sure he's
going to be a late pick, maybe fifth round.
Yeah, no, but I just don't remember if he had a chance
to come back. Yes, he could have come back.
So if all those guys had come back, that's really how teams thrive, is when you have older, experienced talent teaching the younger talent. Like, the loss isn't just that those 5 guys aren't going to be playing on the team. It's that those 5 guys have been around for so long, they really could have helped the true freshmen sort of learn and understand what they need to do at the next level, and even the redshirt freshmen and sophomores. But they're gone, and I don't really understand. In this NIL day and age, I kept on thinking that somebody who's not a surefire first rounder or is going to be a late second rounder, I mean, why wouldn't they come back? If you have a war chest of enough money, you can certainly give them more money. And I get it, they want to get started on their first contracts, but money's money at the end of the day. And if you had a chance, like for instance, if James Williams goes in the 4th or 5th round, you're not going to be able to convince me he shouldn't have come back and played linebacker. Like, no one's going to convince me of that. It's just stupid. So that bothers me. And then you hear the guy that I asked, that I talked to yesterday, Matt Miller, From ESPN, he said some disturbing things for a Miami fan. He didn't realize they were disturbing, but he said, like for Leonard Taylor, he was playing out of position all year at nose tackle. And so combine week, he can finally, get to show what he can do as a regular defensive tackle, not over the center. He said that, obviously we talked about, James Williams playing out of position in college. And he said that he thinks, who was it? He said one of the guys he thinks will play better in college than the pros. I think it was, I think it might have been, was it Leonard? It might have been Leonard. Yeah.
It was Leonard.
Yeah, I'm not reading the whole story, but I mean, that's the perpetual story of these Miami guys. They're better in the pros than in college, and nobody can ever understand why. I mean, for years, people would say, wow, look at what so-and-so did on pro day at Miami. Look at his height, weight, how much weight he's lost or how much weight he's gained, how much muscle he's gained, how he looks. He's so chiseled. Why couldn't he do that when he was at Miami the last 3 or 4 years? And that was a recurring theme. And at some point, Mario Cristobal has to get this to stop, and he hasn't. The outflux of talent, these guys just didn't want to stay around. And I don't know if it's because they didn't want to work really, really hard, which is what Mario Cristobal demands. And they're just sick of going to school. Like, I don't know the details. But the fact that you can't get 5 guys who could have come back and aren't first rounders to come back, it's not a great sign, So, I'm not thrilled by the whole thing. I don't particularly, I don't know if fans even care about where guys are drafted, but ultimately you need to get first rounders, because it helps recruiting. You can say, oh, look, we developed this guy, these 3-4 guys into first rounders. We're going to do the same thing to you. That's huge for recruiting. And then second of all, when you have that top NFL talent, like they're playing at your program for a couple of years, right? 2 or 3 years. So if they're a top NFL talent, they're probably going to do pretty well in college. So that's why at the end of the day, you need first round NFL talent. Miami doesn't have it yet over the last few years, and they need to get it over the next few years, or this program's just not going to be going anywhere, and Mario's going to be on the hot seat. So yeah, it's extremely important Miami starts getting some first rounders, and it will not be this year.
So there's just so many ways to unwrap this subject, quite frankly, which is why we are doing a Good Morning CaneSport show today, because we actually have something interesting to talk about. And it's you start out by astutely pointing out that many of these guys, they could have come back. And you look at Cam Kinchins, okay, and I know he was named an All-American and the whole thing. Cam Kinchins can't cover man. Like he was almost an offer in matchup coverage situations this past season against anybody any good. So now he's going to the National Football League where everybody's good, and he can't cover. And if you're going to try to play NFL defense and you can't cover, that's going to be a problem. So he needed to come back and work on his coverage skills. Now, the guys in the NFL are looking at the interceptions, 11 interceptions over the last 2 years, and they're thinking this guy's a playmaker who can make plays, and we could teach the rest. And listen, unfortunately, there is a track record of way too many guys going to the NFL who play better at the NFL than they played at Miami. So maybe we can't judge definitively. I mean, Tyreek Stevenson was way better in the NFL this past season than he ever was at Miami or at Georgia. So, you can't be absolute in discussing any of this, but Cam Kinchins could have and probably should have come back and worked on his coverage skills for the next 11, 12 months. And I do think it would have improved his draft. Even though you might get drafted in the second round on potential, I think he might have been able to get high in the second round or maybe even the first round if he proved that he can actually cover people like a cornerback, because that would give him great value. So he could have advanced. James Williams absolutely should have come back. The minute he goes to the Senior Bowl and the combine coming up, they're not looking at him as a safety. They're looking at him as a linebacker, which we have known for years that he should have been playing linebacker. And everybody was afraid to put him at linebacker from Manny Diaz on down, because James Williams wanted to be a safety. And if you put him at linebacker, Mr. 5-star James Williams probably would have left the program. To which I say, so? Because James Williams was a very average safety. He wasn't very good. I like James, and I apologize if I'm ruffling feathers or hurting feelings, but he was not that good. And it was a waste. Then you get this 5-star recruit who plays for 3 years, and it ends up being a colossal waste of time because he never was in the right spot, never was utilized in a way that maybe he could have become a more impactful player. Leonard Taylor, my God, one of the biggest disappointments, and there have been a lot of them, no argument, in recent times in Miami Hurricanes lore. Leonard Taylor is one of the biggest disappointments I could ever remember in 40-something years of covering Miami, because when he came to UM, he was supposed to be Vince Wilfork. He was supposed to be Warren Sapp. He was supposed to be an impact defensive tackle, hyped up like crazy coming to the U. Leonard Taylor was not an impactful defensive tackle. Leonard Taylor was a yawn as a Miami Hurricane. The NFL scouts are now telling us Leonard Taylor was being used the wrong way. He was not a nose guard type tackle. Should have been freed up to do more things. I'm not totally buying that argument, because I think Leonard Taylor got a chance to do just about everything and very often disappointed. Okay. Not consistent, didn't show effort often enough. And now he's leaving early to go to the NFL. Listen, everything I just said taken into consideration, Leonard Taylor is the best defensive tackle coming back from Miami next year, probably. And we could talk about the transfer portal additions like Clark from NC State. That guy he's right now a 4th, 5th round draft pick, maybe. Like he's going to be a good player this year coming up. Like no argument at all on that. But Marley Cook, another transfer, same thing. Like they'll be okay, but they're not changing this program any. Leonard Taylor, with his head screwed on straight, playing hard, could have contributed to this football team. And he's not going to be drafted high. They're looking at his tape and they're laughing. He's looking, what, Matt, 4th, 5th round, maybe, I think they're saying right now. So I could go on and on and on through the whole draft list, but and it only gets worse from here. I mean, Javion Cohen, one of the best couple offensive linemen for Miami last year on a young offensive line, no argument. He's not getting drafted above the 4th or 5th round. Maybe he could have come back and gotten better. You got Mirabal and Cristobal coaching you on the O-line. Maybe they make you better, Javion Cohen. You could have come back for another year. I mean, it's just endless. Now, Matt, how does this football program, with this going on every year, where the best players leave the program prematurely, get inflated sense of their values and what they're worth, and they leave, and then the program's got to keep replacing them and keep recycling and going to the portal. And I don't have to tell you about the portal. You're no fan of the portal, and I understand. But you got to keep backfilling these guys while you're trying to recruit and get better with young players too. And then you got to go try to put it all together for a good season. Thank God we got an easy schedule to deal with this year. Or else I'm not sure we would be looking at much different than what we saw the first 2 years. The schedule gives Miami a chance to take a big leap this year and maybe look even better than what they really are, and let it be a hump year for the program that you build off of in recruiting. But at some point, the best players on the team have got to stop going to the pros early, Matt. I don't know how Mario pulls that off, but Michigan did it this year.
Well, it comes back to NIL, which, the NIL gets stretched so thin because you're signing a premier quarterback. That's a lot of money, and he's here for 1 year. That's what I keep saying about NIL. Like it's not necessarily sustainable unless you have an unlimited supply of money, because, the number of people bandy about is what, I think $1.5 million for 1 year, for one player. And if the team doesn't have a great year, that money's gone. That money's gone. You're basically hoping that you're spending that money wisely, in the sense that it's going to have a return of some kind, where you're going to be in the playoffs and, essentially make money off of Cam Ward, right? Whether it's through season tickets, through extra revenue by making the playoffs in the ACC, whatever it may be. But if you don't do that, it's just a zero. And whoever is donating their money to NIL, those people won't be happy either because it's their money and they're basically trusting Mario to make decisions on this roster. And if the roster is winning 5 games and 7 games and 7 games and 8 games and 7 games and 5 games, people are not going to keep giving money. And it's always sort of this weird, vicious cycle, self-fulfilling prophecy. When things are going really well, it's pretty hard to make them go bad. When you have a lot of years of success, you have to be a real moron. Can I say that word? I don't think I'll say it anymore. But you have to be a real, fill in the word that you're not allowed to say, to turn your program into a really bad program, And conversely, it's really hard nowadays to take a program that's had one 10-win season in 20 years and turn them into a perennial 10-win team, which is what Miami used to be and needs to be again. You don't just want them to win 10 or 11 games one year, back to 7 wins, 8 wins, then 10 wins, then 7 wins. You want to be one of the elite programs year in and year out. That's the whole point of building through recruiting. The transfer portal is hit or miss. You don't know who's going in every year. You don't know what quality you're getting. If you're going to live on the portal, and like I said, all the portal is, I've said this before, but it's just a self-imposed probation. If you have 20 portal guys over a 2-year or 3-year span on your roster, that's minus 20 scholarships that you would have had over that 2 or 3 year span of guys that would be there for multiple years, because that's what recruits typically do as they develop. If you look at the average lifespan of a recruit, I got to think it's 3+ years at any particular program, even though some do leave after 1 year, but some stay for 5 years or even 9 years. 2 different programs. But Mario's strength is recruiting. Mario's strength doesn't appear to be taking transfer portal guys, And I've talked to Mario about some of the transfers he's gotten, and he says they're all amazing. They're not taking these transfer portal guys thinking they're bad. They think they're all amazing. And when you look at who he's taken and realize that about half of them have not been any good, let's stick to recruiting, Mario. Not that he already hates me anyway, probably, but now he'll hate me more. I don't care. That's just what I believe. I think he's a great recruiter, and I think that he's sort of blinded sometimes by some of these transfer guys doing well at a Middle Tennessee or name the program. So we'll see. Even the Marshall kid who they're saying you're hearing is doing so well, Elijah Alston. I mean, it's still coming from Marshall, and he's just practicing. Let's see how he does in an actual game against ACC offensive linemen. Just because the guy had a bunch of sacks and tackles for loss last year against not good competition doesn't mean he's going to do the same thing at Miami. Which is why I'm not a fan of the portal. I'm a fan of free agents. And of the 9 guys Mario took this year, there's maybe 3 free agents, in my opinion. So we'll just have to see.
Are you including Michelle Powell on that list?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I like him a lot.
All right, good. Yeah, he's got a great shot to be a really good player for Miami. And
I mean, if you want to look at the 9, obviously Cam Ward, Powell, and I think I would put maybe Clark as half a free agent and maybe Carpenter as half a free agent, and they count as 1. I don't think they're going to be
maybe half. Will you give Alston a half? I hear he's been doing pretty well.
No, but he's going to be a backup. Anyone you take that's a transfer that's going to be a backup. I don't need depth guys in the portal. Just give me a recruit. That's just how I feel, and he's going to be a backup. So,
but when you keep losing your best players to the draft, you don't have a choice but to backfill any which way you can, and that's the situation Mario's in. And it's very, very hard to turn the corner. It really is. And hopefully that they win enough games this year that it helps them in traditional recruiting and they can keep building on what they did there the last 2 years and eventually get out of this vicious circle. So anyway, so that story's on the website today, looking ahead to the draft. You guys can enjoy that. All right, another subject, which is kind of making me feel a little ill, quite honestly. I had the good fortune and listen, I know I was blessed and it was unbelievable and something I'll never forget. But I went with the Miami basketball team every step of the way last year. I just had a feeling that they were going to have a chance to do something special, and they ended up going to the Final Four. And so we covered every single bit of it. We made all 3 road trips. One of only 2 media organizations that did. It was us and the Miami Herald. We're the only ones that covered the basketball team all the way through last year. And man, I came into this year thinking this could be another special year, and boy, was I wrong. I mean, I know they're blaming injuries and Matt, and yes, they've had a million injuries. But when I've watched this team the last month or so, And I said about a month ago that this team was horrible before they went on the slide. I couldn't believe what I was watching, quite frankly. But there's way more than just injuries that's holding this team back. It's clearly a flawed team. And my biggest concern now, and you can read the story we have today on the site, is that Jim Larrañaga not be in denial about what became of this group, because he can't bring them all back. Like they may not have anywhere to go. I mean, Matt, has anybody looked to you like they're ready to go to the NBA, including Keyshawn George, who has the NBA scouts salivating over what maybe he could be a year from now with a really good college basketball season under his belt? He hasn't had a great season this year. Like he needs to come back, and he is absolutely a guy that you would take back. But you can't just bring all these guys back. Like, this is a colossal failure. What I just said about Leonard Taylor with no apologies, this is as big of a disappointment what's going on in basketball this year. And Jim Larrañaga can't just bring everybody back. But I do get concerned when I see him saying things like, if we were healthy, we could play with anybody in the country. And I don't know if I believe that, Matt. I love Jim. I love the fact that he's still positive at this point of the season. If they can get everybody healthy, they still have a chance to go to the ACC tournament and shock the world. And if they win the ACC tournament, they can go play in the NCAAs. But this has been a rough year. And I don't look at that team and say this team can play with anybody in the country.
Again, it's you don't want to mention NIL, but it's all about NIL because
there's every guy on the team is getting paid.
Correct. But I'm talking about next year because this year's over, let's face it. So, he's already talking about Omir coming back. Omir's going to be a graduate who could transfer. He's already transferred once. He's going to get a lot of money wherever he wants to go. They
need to pay him a lot of money. And he's one they need back. And
I'm not sure that Miami basketball will have the same amount of money as North Carolina basketball, Duke basketball. I mean, you name other conferences where basketball is the main sport. Like Miami basketball is clearly, regardless of their success the last 2 years, the back burner sport, and it's not even a close second to football. You don't see subscribers on our site talking about basketball, even during the season. It's all football all the time, and there's a reason for it. That's what the Miami Hurricanes became known for nationally. That's what they change that. Yes, they are. But so it comes down to money. As stupid as it sounds, can you say stupid? You can't say that either.
You can.
Anything on the IQ spectrum. I think stupid's not on the IQ spectrum, but anything on the IQ spectrum, you're not allowed to say. I got to look at the list. You can't say
talking about what you're saying. I have no problem with you saying that what you're saying is stupid. No problem at
all. So anyway, the money has to be there. The money has to be there, and I don't know that it will be for basketball. Especially after a bad year. And that's what I'm saying. It's difficult when you're asking boosters to give $100,000 every single year, and they give you the money, and it's a freaking waste of time, and they don't even enjoy watching the team. Now you come back to them, hey, I promise this time. I told you last year we're going to be amazing. I was wrong. Now we're going to be amazing. Like, at what point do you say, you know what? I'm going to wait and see. I'm sitting out this year, because that's what these boosters do. I talk to these boosters all the time, and it's not going to to be good. I don't know.
Worth the money. They need to bring Norchad.
And there's a reason Larrañaga has 11 scholarship players and not 13. A, it's because he didn't take 13, but B, it's because he doesn't have the freaking money, man. Like, they were, the program, legally was begging for money in whatever way it could within the rules. Like, they literally were begging for money. Like, I know that for a fact. And you can't give everybody all the money. Like, there wasn't enough money to do what a Duke in North Carolina is, where they have 13 4 and 5 stars on their rosters. Like, Miami's not going to be able to do that. And so when you have 1 or 2 injuries at Miami, yeah, it kills you. But at the same time, I wish Jim Larrañaga would just accept the reality of it and stop using the injuries as an excuse. Because like I wrote about, I don't know, a week or two ago, I mean, they were blown out, and there were only 2 good games with a fully healthy team all December. In the only 2 decent games opponents they played, I think it was Kentucky and Colorado maybe in December, blown out by 20 or more points, not even competitive. And then they were fully healthy at that point. The injuries didn't hit the ACC schedule. And for him to keep harping on, if it wasn't for injuries, we'd be amazing. Think what we could be. Yeah, you'd be bad, because we saw you when you were healthy and you were bad, and you didn't get any better. There's no depth. Each player, I haven't seen a single player who could beat anybody off the dribble. And I get it, the guys are banged up, But guys at every team are banged up. Duke's point guard tonight is banged up. I mean, these guys play through injury. Think about how long the season is. I'm coaching Howard Palmetto now. I have 2 kids who have gone to 3 practices. One of them can barely walk, and the other one's arm is killing him. Just from 3 practices of doing nothing. And these are young guys who are just in their prime of their lives, 12 to 16 years old in this division.
It's the second time you've mentioned on this show that you're coaching Howard Palmetto. Are you trying to send a signal to Jim to bring you on staff? Is that what you're trying to do?
No. I'm making a point, but apparently it's gone over your head.
It absolutely has.
Well, you got a big head. I'll say it went under your chin. It's hard to get over your head. It went under your chin. So the bottom line is Jim Larrañaga should accept responsibility for the team being bad and lay blame where it belongs, not on injuries, but on how he built the roster. It didn't work. Just say, listen, we thought it would be better than it was. It didn't work out. Stop saying, oh, if not for the injuries, we'd be amazing. Think what it could have been. And, oh, we can't practice ever because there's only 4 starters available and the 5th starter is always out. So what are we supposed to do? We can't practice. We cancel practice. Apparently they cancel practice every day because, if one starter's missing, the season's over, according to Jim Larrañaga. Other teams are missing their starters all the time, 1 starter, and they do fine. I mean, I'm just sick of the excuses that, I don't understand for a guy who's coached as long as he is why he feels the need to make excuses that don't even make sense. So, I get it. They're injured. I get it. The guy's missing a game. But you know what? When you had, by the way, and Keyshawn George, who was hurt, he began the year on the bench, So the problem was their 5th starter to start the year just wasn't coached up correctly, wasn't as good as they thought he was. Whatever it was, they completely did not understand that Bensley Joseph is good on defense, but not a shooter. They didn't understand they had nobody who could penetrate anywhere near what Isaiah Wong can. And bringing Matthew Cleveland as just a shooter was a waste of time. They should have brought in a guy who could drive to the basket. Because if you notice, the opponents, ever since Virginia, Virginia started this losing streak. What Virginia did, because Miami was averaging 78, 77 points before that game. And what Virginia did was they said, go ahead and try to drive past us. We're going to guard you past the perimeter because you've been beating teams with 3-pointers, which is what they had been doing. And once they extended their perimeter defense to the 3-point line, Miami could do nothing. And every team since then, if you watch, they're guarding Nigel Pack almost right when he gets across the frickin' half-court line. They don't care. They're not worried about anyone penetrating. And yeah, you can throw the ball into Norchad and he'll score his 20 points, but he's the only guy doing anything because nobody else can even get free for a shot. They can't beat anyone off the dribble. They take 3 dribbles and then stop and look for someone to pass to, which has stopped their entire ball movement. One-on-one, they can't beat anyone. I mean, it's just been a disaster. And it's, to me, a lot of it is coaching, even though Jim Larrañaga obviously knows what he's doing. But you watch these games, and he hasn't had an answer the last 4 games for what these defenses are doing. Maybe that's because of the personnel, but the personnel is the guys he recruited, And if Nigel Pack's that hurt, then he shouldn't have been playing anyway, So it's just I don't get the rationale for the whole thing.
And now they play Duke tonight.
And listen, they may beat Duke. That would be the worst thing that ever happened. What's his excuse going to be if they beat Duke? Because now it's a nightmare for Larrañaga. Hey, coach, you said you guys can't be any good because of the injuries. But now, you're missing Nigel. Nigel's out. You're missing Nigel. You got 2 other guys on half a leg. You still got Wooga wearing a boot. But you beat Duke. So were you lying to us the whole time, Jim?
And you're experimenting in practice.
How'd you beat the number 8 team? Jim Larrañaga better hope they lose tonight, or his whole theory of why this team sucks goes out the window.
And they're experimenting in practice because they don't.
That was tongue in cheek. But yeah, go ahead.
They're running experiments in practice. Because Pack's out, Cleveland's sick, so they're experimenting with Norchad and Nwoko, hoping that maybe next year they can have them playing as a tandem.
But by the way, why couldn't they have tried that in the early games this year that they were dominating other teams? Hey, let's try some different combinations because those guys never played together that I can remember.
Very little, no. And I think Jim was caught with his pants down with this team this year. He didn't anticipate that they would fall apart the way they have. I can't blame him for that. But I'm also not sure. To me, you got to have better than Nwoko too. Maybe he develops and is great as a sophomore. He's an okay bench player, but I think they need spots. I think they need to hit the portal. They got a good recruiting class coming in. I think Jim's got to be very careful about which of these guys he brings back. I'm not sure I don't move on from Bensley Joseph. I'm not sure I don't move on from Wooga Poplar and let them go in the portal and find a new situation for themselves. Pack, I think I would keep just because if you can figure out a way to get him open, he can hit knockdown shots. But I don't bring too many of these guys back, beyond Keyshawn George, Pack, and Norchad. I don't. So we'll see how that plays out. But Canes against Duke tonight. For those that are still engaged in basketball, listen, playing Duke's always a special occurrence. So enjoy the game at least. All right, a couple of stories to talk about today. We continue our series projecting the different positions on the team. We've already done quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. Today we do the offensive line. Big question on the line is who plays left guard. We already know who's going to fill in at center. Zach Carpenter, the transfer from Indiana. Matthew McCoy is a guy that you think has promise, but he was splitting time in the bowl game with Louis Cristobal. I wonder whether the coaches, by the time spring practice is over, don't put Tommy Kinsler into the competition there at left guard. But Matt, I also think, and you could start grimacing already, I would watch that transfer portal in April. I think Miami is going to be shopping for at least one more offensive lineman. They need another experienced body on this team to get ready for next year. You made this huge investment in Cam Ward. You got to be able to protect him.
Yeah, they went after some guards in the first portal window. It's just hard to say who's going to be available. And I'm not sure that it might not be better. I still think Jalen Rivers is going to be if he plays in the NFL, which I think he's good enough to, I think he'll be a guard, not a tackle. So I don't see a reason why, if Okunlola, who I think is going to be out this spring, but if he lives up to his 5-star billing in the fall, if even this JUCO, who I think is probably Markel Bell, is maybe he won't be ready, but if he is, I don't want to just sort of hem them in and say, oh, it's got to be a guard, because we know Jalen Rivers can be a very, very good guard. So to me, it's get the best five on the field. And yeah, if there's a free agent guard or tackle in the second portal window, I'm sure Miami will chase him, but it's going to be expensive, because everybody needs those guys. Everybody needs a starting offensive lineman who's a high quality guy. $200,000,
Matt, when you're spending money the way they're spending money now.
No big deal.
No big deal, man.
But yeah, I think the offensive line will be good. Look, Carpenter's going to be a step down from Matt Lee. And I would think, as of right now, the guard position is going to be a step down from Javion Cohen. So to say that the offensive line is going to be better than last year is a little bit of a stretch. But at the same time, you got a lot of guys who are young and developing, who were freshmen last year. So if Okunlola, for instance, can sort of get it, because he played at a very small high school, he really wasn't ready. But he has an NFL body. I mean, you look at him, he's, he honestly looks more NFL ready than Maui Goa when you just look at them side by side, believe it or not. So you just don't know. The hope is they'll be better than last year. They were pretty good last year, especially compared to the year before. I think they gave up 16 sacks. The run game averaged 5.0 yards per carry. Most teams will take that. That's not bad. It's not elite, but it's not bad. So I'm mildly optimistic on the offensive line, and I'll touch briefly on the tight ends because people were freaking out on the message boards. They were acting like, there was this, I don't know if you heard of this, there was this major 280-million-year-old fossil that these scientists discovered years ago. And it was like in textbooks, like it rewrote history. And now they finally studied it in Italy. And it turns out it was a fake. And it was just a bunch of painted stones and a few bones taped together or something. And like, that's what I feel like the tight end position is, because it just seems like a fraud. Like people were like, why'd you give them a B for their overall grade and we give them a C- for depth? Well, the reason I give them a B is because I don't know yet for sure if they're a fraud, because everyone wants to, some people are like, you should give them an F. But this isn't based on last year. Last year they were definitely F as in fraud.
We're looking at this year.
But I feel bad giving them an F already. Like, give them a chance. Give them a chance. So
Arroyo is coming back.
Yeah, I mean, but is Arroyo?
Riley Williams is going to year
like Arroyo. It's just based on what coaches tell us. But Arroyo's never done anything, right? He's been here 3 years. He's been hurt for 2 of them, and he was a backup one of them and didn't do much. And then he's sort of started, his second year a little bit with Will Mallory and just didn't do much either. And I'm not ready to anoint him this amazing tight end. It's just all hype based on the coaches, but the coaches think everyone's great. There's very few times that even privately a coach will be like, yeah, that guy's no good. Because if he's no good, they already have got rid of him. They're not going to waste their time. Everyone on the roster, those 85 spots are precious. They're precious. It's like, it's like a chicken finger when Gary goes to Hooters. I mean, every chicken finger he gets on that plate is precious to him. He's not just going to give it away unless...
Chicken wings, not fingers. You don't eat chicken fingers at Hooters. You eat chicken wings.
Gary's chicken fingers, because he's a child at Hooters. If one falls on the floor and it's 3 second rule, he'll still eat it. But if it's more than 3 seconds, that's when you toss him away. And if a football player has fallen on the floor for more than 3 seconds, like, they are casting him away at that point, and that's when they'll tell you, yeah, he sucked. And by the way, everybody who leaves sucked, and everybody who's on the team, on the roster, is great. Like, that's just what coaches tell you. And it's not Mario. It's every coach that's ever been at Miami. That's just the way they operate. Like, you
gotta believe in your team. If you're a coach and you don't believe in your team,
family. They are a family, and it's like you or I saying, "Oh yeah, my son, he needs to just like live on the streets because he's no good." You don't do that to your family. And this is, if you're on that 85 man roster at Miami, and kudos to them, it's family, which is why whether you go, we try to keep it real, but any Miami site you go to in the entire world, you're not going to find very many, oh, this guy's no good, or, oh, we're hearing this guy really sucks. Like, nobody posts that. So when we say stuff negative sometimes about people, like, fans freak out at us like it's our fault. But it's because, we have alternative sources than Miami coaches, which will tell you things sometimes. If all you listen to is Miami coaches, everyone's doing great and everyone's going to be amazing. And guess what? They've been saying that for 20 years and they haven't been. So, that's why I'm really interested when spring practice comes around. I can look at it a little bit closer with my own eyes, hopefully, assuming Mario actually lets us take our long lenses out there and see if we can tell a discernible difference between what we've seen over the years and what this year's team looks like, because that would be nice. Even just the eye test, just get the eye test for once. How about that?
It's a different looking football team. That's what I'm hearing. It's
well, that's what they say that a lot. That's why I want to see.
I know, but this is what I'm hearing. I'm hearing a lot. We were just talking tight ends. I'm hearing a lot of Elijah Lofton hype, the true freshman who's going to be an H-back tight end. I'm hearing a lot of hype about him. I'm hearing a lot of hype about Arroyo, but I agree with you. We got to see it with our own eyes. Please let us out to spring practice, Mario, please, so we could see some of this stuff with our own eyes and report it from a place of reality. I mean, but talking about the O-line and putting that to bed. I mean, it goes back to our original conversation on this show. Matt Lee. Carpenter's not going to be as good as Matt Lee. Oh, wait, Matt Lee might not even get drafted, according to Mr. Miller from ESPN. Interesting. Javion Cohen, maybe 5th round draft pick. They're saying
that wasn't according to him. That's according to the different mock drafts. I only asked Matt Miller about the top 3 guys. Because there's 100 people on the conference call and he doesn't answer.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've gotten some reviews from some scouts. I don't think that it's far off.
No, what's in the story is what is out there. Yeah. But I'm saying don't attribute it to Matt, because Matt just spoke of those 3 guys. The other stuff that we wrote in there is attributed to other sources. Yeah.
But we're saying the replacements are not going to be as good as guys who are going to be late round draft picks or not drafted at all.
Hypothetically, you don't necessarily do it.
Back, folks. This is not a 1 or 2 year rebuild. This is going to take. This is a steady progression. Keep chopping wood, keep whittling away at it, and hope that maybe by the time you get to year 4 or 5, you're a pretty decent football program. I mean, that's just the truth. And people don't want to hear that. They want to rip Mario. Mario stinks. Mario this, Mario that. Mario didn't inherit very much here. And it's being proven out in all these NFL drafts. And he's got 2 recruiting classes now. The second one better than the first one. It's got to have time to develop, and a lot of that development will start here in spring practice. All right, a couple recruiting things on the site today. You'll see a story on Cocoa, Florida, 4-star wide receiver Javon Boggs. He has been committed to Ohio State. Yeah, that Brian Hartline guy again, got another one. But he has not shut down his recruitment or felt interest from Miami decline, and the Canes are very, very heavily after him. I'm not going to say they're as heavily after him as they were when they lost out to Brian Hartline of Ohio State with Jeremiah Smith. But Miami is absolutely hanging in there. So check that story out on the website. And we also have a story on 2025 Edge, CJ May. He has recently decommitted from Notre Dame. Miami's already jumped in there and gotten in the mix, and we've got an update on what he's saying about Miami. So make sure that you guys check that one out as well. So that's going to do it for today for Good Morning CaneSport. We thank you guys so much for starting out your day with us. If you're on YouTube right now and you like this show, like this channel, hit your subscribe and like buttons. It does help us in growing our audience. And again, if you are not yet a subscriber to CaneSport.com, please head on over to the website right now. We will give you your first 2 months for just $1. You use the code CANES1. That's CANES1 when you sign up, and you'll get your first 2 months for $1. We hope you will never leave. We hope that you enjoy your time once you get there. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. Thank you again, everybody, and we will see you next time.